Hello, hope you're having a great weekend so far. Good to have you with us at this hour. I'm Daniel Choy. We start with the second round of reunions for families separated by the Korean War at Mount Kumgang Resort in North Korea. After seeing their loved ones for the first time in over 6 decades, the families spent what was likely a difficult night in separate hotels. Our Unification Ministry correspondent Song Ji-sun is standing by at the Inter-Korean Dialogue headquarters in Seoul. Let's connect to her now. Ji-sun?
Well, Daniel, the families are having their last reunion session of the day as we speak, and there's just one session left, which is the farewell for Monday morning. Now, they had a private session this morning, and it was the only session they get away from the authorities and the media. They also had a chance to share gifts they had prepared for their loved ones, like these flower shoes that 98-year-old Koo Sang-yeon had promised his 2 daughters before being taken away to the North Korean army.
저도 뭐 아주 어렸을 때서부터 아버지가 나중에 돌아가시더라도 니네 누나들한테 예쁜 신발하고 그 옷감 하나는 꼭 좀 해주라고 그렇게 말씀.
Now some others have waited for so long that it is now difficult for this 93-year-old mother to remember her son.
약간의 치매가 되다 보니까 그때 더 힘들어서 울면서 왜 여태까지 너는 나를 안 찾아왔느냐. 그래서 1년에 한 번 정도 와야 되지 않느냐. 그러시면서 우시더라고요. 그럴 때 그 가슴 그 복받침이 되는 거는 참 진짜 다들 눈물이면서 그랬는데요. 그러다가 바로 또 치매기가 있으시면서 누구냐 이런 식으로.
This family had their last meal together, with the mother wearing the scarf presented by her North Korean son, but she kept on asking who her son was and those who accompanied him were.
That's such a painful sight. We can assume that each of the families have experienced their share of tragedy over the 6 decades they've been separated. They've only had one more day to spend time together before they part ways, Ji-sun, possibly for the last time in their lives. So little time, yet there was so much surveillance around them.
Right, Daniel, the families from the north seem to be very cautious and conscious of the eyes and ears listening and watching them. Now, what I've experienced from the covering the first reunion at the scene, it was primarily the North Korean authorities and officials who prevented South Korean journalists from hearing the family stories. However, one thing remains the same. The response from the North Korean families has been the same, that they are content and their lives in the communist regime have been happy. Now, one thing to note here is that this round of reunions is for South Korean families seeking their loved ones in the north, compared to the first round where it was the North Korean families seeking relatives living in the south. But their time together is now running out fast. There is only one session remaining after tonight, which will be the farewell session Monday morning, and I'll be sure to keep you updated throughout this event. Reporting live from the Inter-Korean Dialogue headquarters, I'm Song Ji-sun.
Thank you for that, Ji-sun. We look forward to more updates from you. Moving on, South Korea has fired warning shots at a North Korean patrol boat that strayed into South Korean waters. Pyongyang has called the firing a military provocation. Connie Kim looks into whether the incident could shake up inter-Korean ties, which is already hanging by a thread.
The South Korean Navy fired 5 machine gun rounds at a North Korean patrol boat that crossed the northern limit line, the de facto maritime border between the 2 Koreas. Seoul's military authorities said Sunday the vessel crossed the western sea border at around 3:30 p.m. on Saturday by some 800 meters. The crossing was made just northeast of South Korea's Yeonpyeongdo Island, the site of a deadly artillery attack by the North in 2010. The North Korean vessel was reportedly cracking down on Chinese fishing boats and strayed into South Korean waters. The boat retreated about 8 minutes after the shots were fired, and no skirmishes were reported during the process. North Korea does not acknowledge the northern limit line, which was drawn in 1953 at the end of the Korean War. The regime wants the border drawn farther south to divide the waters equally between the 2 Koreas. The North's Committee for the Peaceful Reunification of Korea called the firing a military provocation. The organization's spokesman said Sunday the vessel was conducting a routine operation when the belligerent South carried out a provocation against the boat. He warned the incident could spark military confrontation and refuel tensions on the peninsula. The incident took place as a second round of reunions for war-separated families is being held, raising concerns it could disrupt the conciliatory mood created by the 2 Koreas. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Security has been beefed up near COEX Mall in Seoul after possible threats by what appears to be an Islamic State-linked group. The threats were reported by the National Intelligence Service, which cited information from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The group could be an African group from Mali, possibly linked to the Islamic State, or IS. The group posted on social media it would detonate explosives sometime today at a shop near the COEX complex in Seoul's upscale Gangnam district. Police said the likelihood of an attack is low, as there have been so far no signs that would raise suspicions of one. An NIS official said the spy agency is working to confirm the facts and prepare for all possibilities. Korea has reported its first death from Middle East respiratory syndrome since July 10th, raising the death toll from the outbreak to 37. Health officials reported the person died at 1:52 a.m. Sunday morning. Officials said the person had a lung transplant after contracting the virus but had failed to recover. The death raises Korea's MERS fatality rate by 0.5% to 19.9%. This is the first death from the disease after the only other MERS patient in Korea tested positive for the disease earlier this month. The person had tested negative for the virus on September 30th and again on October 1st before a positive reading in a subsequent test. The International Monetary Fund's top Asia economist says there may be too much concern about China's economic slowdown. He also cautions China against relying too heavily on monetary policy for growth. Lee Ji-won shares the insights from Lee Chang-yong.
The director of the International Monetary Fund's Asia and Pacific Department says China's economic slump may hit other Asian economies harder than expected, but the effect on the Chinese economy may not be as dire as once thought. In an interview with the Wall Street Journal on Saturday, Lee Chang-yong said a 1 percentage point decrease in China's growth could bring about a 0.8 percentage point decrease in the GDPs of many Asian countries, and that the effects are much worse than expected. He also said, however, that a slump in the manufacturing sector is not enough evidence that China will have a hard landing because the slowdown in manufacturing will be offset by a surge in the services sector. Yi said that despite the overcapacity problem in the manufacturing sector, other parts of China are growing, including shipping and retail. He cautioned Beijing against relying too much on monetary policy to stimulate growth, saying that a failure to do so will eventually lead to an overcapacity problem and credit expansion. That, he says, could delay necessary structural and governance reforms. The senior IMF official said the crucial issue, however, is whether China can properly manage the transition with its current system of governance. Yi recommended China place stronger budget constraints on state-owned companies, cut corporate debt levels, and deal with bad loans. Lee Ji-won, Arirang News.
Staying focused on China's economy, big names in China will gather Monday to hash out a new 5-year plan to address the question of whether to chase the country's traditional GDP target or embrace reforms. The sense of urgency stems from China's weakest economic growth rate in 6 years at 6.9% in the third quarter. Beijing has reportedly said it wants to transition to a new normal of slower, more reliable growth led by domestic consumer demand rather than exports and state investment. Some stumbling blocks to its ability to manage the process include clumsy interventions in failing stock markets. The meeting for the 5-year plan will bring together the ruling party's 205-strong Central Committee and around 170 reserve members for 4 days. India, currently the world's third-largest smartphone market, will jump up to second place in the year 2020. The projection by U.S. market research firm Strategy Analytics says India's domestic smartphone sales will reach 257 million units in the same year, growing 113% from this year. China will retain its position as the largest smartphone market with domestic sales of 5 million units that year. The U.S., the current second-largest smartphone market, will fall one notch to third with domestic sales of 177 million units. Korea will fall 4 places to 17th. Samsung Pay now has more than 1 million users in South Korea. According to Samsung Electronics, the average number of transactions on the service topped 100,000 on Sunday. Convenience stores, department stores, supermarkets, and restaurants were the top transaction venues. The company says that's just the beginning, as it is confident its mobile payment solution has the potential to be accepted at approximately 30 million merchant locations worldwide. The standout feature of Samsung Pay is magnetic secure transmission, a technology that allows buyers to make payments by holding a smartphone near a traditional card reader, regardless of whether the terminals support near-field communication technology. In addition, it is still compatible with older magnetic stripe devices. And now for a quick look at the weather before we go. There's going to be much less fine dust in the air this week in Korea. Just be ready for a drop in temperature when the sun goes down. Seoul will begin Monday morning at 12 degrees Celsius and then rise to 19. Daejeon, Daegu, and Changwon will reach a high of 20. That's Korea for you. Let's check out the weather conditions outside of the country, around the world. Well, these are the stories we're following at this hour. For more updates, do join us at 10 p.m. Korea time. Thank you for watching.